Welcome to HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Unlike a scripting or programming language that uses scripts to perform functions, a markup language uses tags to identify content. Here we can see example of tag. The ability to code using HTML is essential for any web professional. Acquiring this skill should be the starting point for anyone who is learning how to create content for the web. Modern web design. HTML shows structure. CSS shows presentation. JavaScript shows behavior. PHP or similar shows backend. CMS shows content management. Although various versions have been released over the years, HTML basics remain the same. The structure of an HTML document has been compared with that of a sandwich. As a sandwich has two slices of bread, the HTML document has opening and closing HTML tags. Here we can see how HTML tag is written. Immediately following the opening HTML tag, you'll find the head of the document, which is identified by opening and closing head tags. The head of an HTML file contains all of the non-visual elements that help make the page work. The body tag follows the head tag. All visual structural elements are contained within the body tag. Headings, paragraphs, lists, quotes, images, and links are just a few of the elements that can be contained within the body tag. HTML files are text files, so you can use any text editor to create your first web page. There are some very nice HTML editors available. You can choose the one that works for you. For now, let's write our examples in Notepad. To save the HTML file, .html is use. HTML includes 6 levels of headings, which are ranked according to importance. These are Heading 1, Heading 2, Heading 3, Heading 4, Heading 5, and Heading 6. The following code defines all of the headings. The heading output will be shown as follows. To create a horizontal line, use the HR tag. The output of such tag is shown as follows. To create a paragraph, simply type in the P tag element with its opening and closing tags. The output for paragraph tag is shown as follows. Use the BR tag to add a single line of text without starting a new paragraph. The BR tag element is an empty HTML element. It has no end tag. Opening the HTML file in the browser shows that a single line break has been added to the paragraph. In HTML, there is a list of elements that specify text style. Formatting elements were designed to display special types of text. Each paragraph in the example is formatted differently to demonstrate what each tag does. Attributes provide additional information about an element or a tag, while also modifying them. Most attributes have a value. The value modifies the attribute. In this example, the value of center indicates that the content within the P element should be aligned to the center. The align attribute is used to specify how the text is aligned. In the example below, we have a paragraph that is aligned to the center, and a line that is aligned to the left. The image tag is used to insert an image. It contains only attributes, and does not have a closing tag. The image's URL address can be defined using the src attribute. You need to put in the image location for the src attribute that is between the quotation marks. For example, if you have a photo named tree.jpg in the same folder as the HTML file, your code should look like this. To define the image size, use the width and height attributes. The value can be specified in pixels or as a percentage. By default, an image has no borders. Use the border attribute within the image tag to create a border around the image. An ordered list starts with the OL tag, and each list item is defined by the list tag. Here is an example of an ordered list. The output for ordered list has shown below. An unordered list starts with the UL tag. Here is an example of an unordered lists. The output of such unordered list is shown as follows. Tables are defined by using the table tag. Tables are divided into table rows with the TR tag. Table rows are divided into table columns, table data, with the TD tag. Here is an example of a table with 1 row and 3 columns. A border can be added using the border attribute. A table cell can span 2 or more columns. Here is the output of such border. The example below demonstrates the colspan attribute in action. Output of such example is shown as follow. Now let's specify a background color of red for a table cell. To do that, just use the BG color attribute. And here this is the output. Links are also an integral part of every web page. You can add links to text or images that will enable the user to click on them in order to be directed to another file or web page. In HTML, links are defined using the tag. Use the href attribute to define the link's destination address. Once the code has been saved, Learn Playing will display as a link. Learn Playing. Clicking on Learn Playing redirects you to www.playgame.com. The target attribute specifies where to open the link document. Giving a _blank value to your attribute will have the link open in a new window or new tab. In HTML, most elements are defined as block level or inline elements. Block level elements start from a new line. For example, h1 tag form tag li tag ol tag ul tag p tag pre tag table tag div tag etc. Inline elements are normally displayed without line breaks. For example, b tag a tag strong tag image tag input tag em tag span tag etc. The div tag element is block level element that is often used as a container for other HTML elements. When used together with some CSS styling, the div tag element can be used to style block of content. Similarly, the span tag element is an inline element that is often used as a container for some text. When used together with CSS, the span tag element can be used to style parts of the text. Other elements can be used either as block level elements or inline elements. This includes the following elements. Applet is for embedded Java applet. iframe is for inline frame. Ins is for inserted text. Map is for image map. Object is for embedded object. Script is for script within an HTML document. You can insert inline elements inside block elements. For example, you can have multiple span elements inside a div tag element. HTML forms are used to collect information from the user. Forms are defined using the form tag element, with its opening and closing tags. Use the action attribute to point to a web page that will load after the user submits the form. The method attribute specifies the HTTP method, get or post, to be used when forms are submitted. See below for description. To take in user input, you need the corresponding form elements, such as text fields. The input tag element has many variations, depending on the type attribute. It can be a text, password, radio, URL, submit, etc. The example below shows a form requesting a username and password. If we change the input type to radio, it allows the user select only one of a number of choices. The type checkbox allows the user to select more than one option. The submit button submits a form to its action attribute. HTML colors are expressed as hexadecimal values. As you can see, there are 16 values there. 0 through F0 represents the lowest value, and F represents the highest. Colors are displayed in combinations of red, green, and blue light RGB. Hex values are written using the hashtag symbol, hash, followed by either 3 or 6 hex characters. As shown in the picture below, the circles overlap, forming new colors. All of the possible red, green, and blue combinations potentially number over 16 million. Here are only a few of them. The BG color attribute can be used to change the web page's background color. This example would produce a dark blue background with a white headline. A page can be divided into frames using a special frame document. The frame tag defines one specific window, frame, within a frame set. Each frame tag in a frame set can have different attributes, such as border, scrolling, the ability to resize, etc. The frame set element specifies the number of columns or rows in the frame set, as well as what percentage or number of pixels of space each of them occupies. Use the attribute to specify that a user cannot resize a frame element. Frame content should be defined using the src attribute. Lastly, the noFrame tag element provides a way for browsers that do not support frames to view the page. The element can contain an alternative page, complete with a body tag and any other elements. Now we are moving to our next coding for HTML5. When writing HTML5 documents, one of the first new features that you'll notice is the doctype declaration. The character encoding charset declaration is also simplified. There are some new elements in HTML5 such as article tag, aside tag, audio tag, canvas tag, datalist tag, details tag, embed tag, footer tag, header tag, nav tag, output tag, progress tag, section tag, video tag, and even more. In HTML, elements typically belonged in either the block level or inline content model. HTML5 introduces 7 main content models: metadata, embedded, interactive, heading, phrasing, flow, sectioning. Metadata is used for content that sets up the presentation or behavior of the rest of the content. These elements are found in the head of the document. It includes elements such as base tag, link tag, meta tag, no script tag, style tag, title tag. Embedded is used for content that imports other resources into the document. It includes elements such as audio tag, video tag, canvas tag, iframe tag, img tag, math tag, object tag, s versus g tag. Interactive is used for content specifically intended for user interaction. It includes elements such as a tag, audio tag, video tag, button tag, details tag, embedded tag, iframe tag, img tag, input tag, label tag, object tag, select tag, texturia tag. Heading used to defines a section header. It includes elements such as h1 tag, h2 tag, h3 tag, h4 tag, h5 tag, h6 tag, hgroup tag. Phrasing model has a number of inline level elements in common with HTML4. It includes elements such as img tag, span tag, strong tag, label tag, br tag, small tag, sub tag. Flow content contains the majority of HTML5 elements that would be included in the normal flow of the document. Sectioning content defines the scope of headings, content, navigation, and footers. It includes elements such as article tag, aside tag, nav tag, section tag. A generic HTML5 page structure looks like this. You may not need some of these elements, depending on your page structure. In HTML4, we would define a header like this. In HTML5, a simple header tag is used, instead. The header tag element is appropriate for use inside the body tag. The footer element is also widely used. Generally, we refer to a section located at the very bottom of the web page as the footer. This tag represents a section of a page that links to other pages or to certain sections within the page. This would be a section with navigation links. Here is an example of a major block of navigation links. Article is a self-contained, independent piece of content that can be used and distributed separately from the rest of the page or site. This could be a forum post, a magazine or newspaper article, a blog entry, a comment, an interactive widget or gadget, or any other independent piece of content. The article tag element replaces the div tag element that was widely used in HTML4, along with an id or class. Section tag is a logical container of the page or article. Sections can be used to divide up content within an article. Each section tag should be identified, typically by including a heading, h1 to h6 element, as a child of the section element. A side tag is secondary or tangential content which could be considered separate from but indirectly related to the main content. This type of content is often represented in sidebars. When an aside tag is used within an article tag, the content of the aside tag should be specifically related to that article. Before HTML5, there was no standard for playing audio files on a web page. The HTML5 audio tag element specifies a standard for embedding audio in a web page. There are 2 different ways to specify the audio source file's URL. The first uses the source attribute, the second way uses the tag element inside the audio tag element. The audio tag element creates an audio player inside the browser. Controls specifies that audio controls should be displayed, such as a play, pause button, etc. Autoplay. When this attribute is defined, audio starts playing as soon as it is ready, without asking for the visitor's permission. Loop. This attribute is used to have the audio replay every time it is finished. The video element is similar to the audio element. You can specify the video source URL using an attribute in a video element, or using source elements inside the video element. Another aspect shared by both the audio and the video elements is that each has controls, autoplay and loop attributes. In this example, the video will replay after it finishes playing. The progress tag element provides the ability to create progress bars on the web. The progress element can be used within headings, paragraphs, or anywhere else in the body. Progress element attributes. Value specifies how much of the task has been completed. Max specifies how much work the task requires in total. With HTML5 web storage, websites can store data on a user's local computer. Before HTML5, we had to use JavaScript cookies to achieve this functionality. The advantages of web storage: more secure, faster, stores a larger amount of data. Stored data is not sent with every server request. There are two types of web storage objects: session storage, local storage. Local versus session. Session storage is destroyed once the user closes the browser. Local storage stores data with no expiration date. The syntax for web storage for both local and session storage is very simple and similar. The data is stored as key-value pairs. Storing a value, getting a value, removing a value, removing all values. The geolocation API's main method is getCurrentPosition, which retrieves the current geographic location of the user's device. Parameters. ShowLocation, mandatory, defines the callback method that retrieves location information. Error handler, optional, defines the callback method that is invoked when an error occurs in processing the asynchronous call. Options, optional, defines a set of options for retrieving the location information. User location can be presented in two ways, geodetic and civic. 1. The geodetic way to describe position refers directly to latitude and longitude. 2. The civic representation of location data is presented in a format that is more easily read and understood by the average person. Each parameter has both a geodetic and a civic representation. The drag-and-drop feature lets you grab an object and drag it to a different location. To make an element draggable, just set the draggable attribute to true. The API for HTML5 drag-and-drop is event-based. What to drag? When the element is dragged, the onDragStart attribute calls a function, drag, event, which specifies what data is to be dragged. The data transfer, setData, method sets the data type and the value of the dragged data. In our example, the data type is text, and the value is the ID of the draggable element, image. Where to drop? The onDragOver event specifies where the dragged data can be dropped. By default, data and elements cannot be dropped in other elements. To allow a drop, we must prevent the default handling of the element. This is done by calling the event, preventDefault, method for the onDragOver event. Do the drop. When the dragged data is dropped, a drop event occurs. In the example above, the onDrop attribute calls a function, drop, event. The preventDefault method prevents the browser's default handling of the data. Default is open as link on drop. The dragged data can be accessed with the data transfer, getData, method. This method will return any data that was set to the same type in the setData method. The dragged data is the ID of the dragged element, image. At the end, the dragged element is appended into the drop element, using the appendChild function. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics, and is used to draw shapes with HTML style markup. It offers several methods for drawing paths, boxes, circles, text, and graphic images. An SVG image can be added to HTML code with just a basic image tag that includes a source attribute pointing to the image. To draw shapes with SVG, you first need to create an SVG element tag with two attributes, width and height. To create a circle, add a circle tag. CX pushes the center of the circle further to the right of the screen. CY pushes the center of the circle further down from the top of the screen. R defines the radius. Fill determines the color of our circle. Stroke adds an outline to the circle. Rectag defines a rectangle. The following code will draw a green-filled rectangle. Line tag defines a line segment. X1, Y1, define the start coordinates. X2, Y2, define the end coordinates. Polyline tag defines shapes built from multiple line definitions. Points are the polyline's coordinates. The code below will draw a black check sign. The is similar to the with one exception. You can independently change the horizontal and vertical axes of its radius, using the Rx and Y attributes. The element is used to create a graphic with at least 3 sides. The polygon element is unique because it automatically closes off the shape for you. SVG animations can be created using the element. The example below creates a rectangle that will change its position in 3 seconds and will then repeat the animation twice. Attribute name specifies which attribute will be affected by the animation. From specifies the starting value of the attribute. 2 specifies the ending value of the attribute. Dir specifies how long the animation runs duration. Fill specifies whether or not the attribute's value should return to its initial value when the animation is finished. Values remove resets the value. Freeze keeps the to value. Repeat count specifies the repeat count of the animation. In the example above, the rectangle changes its X attribute from 0 to 300 in 3 seconds. The path tag element is used to define a path. The following commands are available for path data: M, move to, L, line to, H, horizontal line to, V, vertical line to, C, curve to, S, smooth curve to, Q, quadratic Bezier curve, T, smooth quadratic Bezier curve to, A, elliptical arc, Z, close path. Define a path using the D attribute. M places our virtual pen down at the position 0, 0. It then moves 200 px down and to the right, then moves up to the position 200, 0. The Z command closes the shape, which results in a hypotenuse. The HTML canvas is used to draw graphics that include everything from simple lines to complex graphic objects. The canvas tag element must have an id attribute so it can be referred to by JavaScript. The HTML canvas is a two-dimensional grid. The upper left corner of the canvas has the coordinates 0, 0. X coordinate increases to the right. Y coordinate increases toward the bottom of the canvas. The fill rect X, Y, W, H method draws a filled rectangle, in which W indicates width and H indicates height. The default fill color is black. A black 100*100 pixel rectangle is drawn on the canvas at the position 20, 20. The fill style property is used to set a color, gradient, or pattern to fill the drawing. Using this property allows you to draw a green filled rectangle. The canvas supports various other methods for drawing. Draw a line. Draw a circle. Gradients. Drawing text on the canvas. The features of Canvas are as follows. Elements are drawn programmatically. Drawing is done with pixels. Animations are not built in. High performance for pixels-based drawing operations. Resolution dependent. No support for event handlers. You can save the resulting image as .png or .jpg. Well suited for graphic-intensive games. The features of S versus G are as follows. Elements are part of the page's DOM document object model. Drawing is done with vectors. Effects, such as animations, are built in. Based on standard XML syntax, which provides better accessibility. Resolution independent. Support for event handlers. Not suited for game applications. Best suited for applications with large rendering areas, for example, Google Maps. The canvas element can be transformed. As an example, a text is written on the canvas at the coordinates 10, 30. The translate X, Y method is used to move the canvas. X indicates how far to move the grid horizontally, and Y indicates how far to move the grid vertically. The scale method scales the current drawing. It takes two parameters: the number of times by which the image should be scaled in the X direction, the number of times by which the image should be scaled in the Y direction. This will scale the canvas 1.5 times in the X direction, and 4 times in Y direction. HTML5 brings many features and improvements to web form creation. There are new attributes and input types that were introduced to help create better experiences for web users. Form creation is done in HTML5 the same way as it was in HTML4. HTML5 has introduced a new attribute called placeholder. On input tag and texturia tag elements, this attribute provides a hint to the user of what information can be entered into the field. The autofocus attribute makes the desired input focus when the form loads. The required attribute is used to make the input elements required. The form will not be submitted without filling in the required fields. HTML5 added several new input types. Color. Date. Datetime. Datetime local. Email. Month. Number. Range. Search. Telephone. Time. URL. Week. New input attributes in HTML5. Autofocus. Form. Form action.
form enc type, form method, form no validate, form target,
height and width, list,
min and max, multiple,
pattern, regexp,
placeholder,
required,
step.
The new search input type can be used to create a search box. The datalist tag can be used to define a list of pre-defined options for the search field. The option tag defines the options in a drop-down list for the user to select. Some other new input types include email, URL, and telephone. These are especially useful when opening a page on a modern mobile device, which recognizes the input types and opens a corresponding keyboard matching the field's type.